Everyone thinks the Balrog was the true horror beneath Khazad-dûm. A demon of shadow and flame. An ancient servant of Morgoth powerful enough to destroy entire kingdoms. The monster hidden in the deepest dark beneath the mountains. But that's not what really happened. Because Tolkien quietly implies something deeply unsettling during Gandalf's fall through Moria. The Balrog was not the oldest thing down there. Not the strangest. Not even the most terrifying. Far beneath the foundations of the Dwarven kingdom. Beneath the roots of the mountains themselves. Gandalf encountered creatures so ancient and unknowable that even he refused to describe them fully. And the most disturbing part? He says even Sauron did not know what they were. Tonight, we're talking about what Gandalf truly found beneath Khazad-dûm. The Nameless Things. And why their existence may completely change how we understand Middle-earth itself. At first glance, the Nameless Things seem insignificant. Tolkien mentions them only briefly. No detailed descriptions. No grand battles. No history. Just a single horrifying line buried inside Gandalf's account of his battle beneath Moria. But Tolkien often hid his greatest horrors in what he refused to explain. Like hearing movement behind a locked door. And realizing the silence afterward is somehow worse. Most people imagine Middle-earth as fully understood. A world with clear structures. Clear hierarchies. Clear origins. At the top stands Eru Iluvatar. Then the Valar. Then Maiar like Gandalf and Sauron. Then elves, men, dwarves, and orcs. An ordered cosmos. But the deeper Tolkien's mythology descends underground. The more that order begins to collapse. Khazad-dûm was never merely a mine. It was an intrusion. The dwarves dug too deep not because they reached a buried monster, but because they breached layers of reality never meant to be disturbed. That distinction matters. Because the Balrog itself was understandable. Terrifying, yes. But understandable. A fallen Maya. A servant of Morgoth. A being with purpose, history, and allegiance. The Nameless Things are different. They belong to no side. And that is what makes them horrifying. Most people never realized Gandalf's description becomes strangely abstract when speaking about the deepest caverns. He says they fell through tunnels far below the deepest delvings of the dwarves. That phrase is important. Not beneath Moria. Beneath the foundations of Moria. As though the kingdom itself rested atop older worlds buried underneath creation. And Gandalf says something even stranger. The creatures down there nod at the earth itself. Not metaphorically. Literally. Imagine that image for a moment. Things so ancient they feed upon the bones of the world. Like worms inside a corpse too large to comprehend. This is where things get darker. Because Tolkien rarely wrote meaningless horror. The deeper regions beneath Middle-earth feel less like caves. And more like fractures in reality itself. Places untouched by memory. Untouched by history. Possibly untouched even by the authority of the Valar. And the Nameless Things seem perfectly adapted to that darkness. That detail changes everything. Because evil in Tolkien usually desires something. Morgoth wants domination. Sauron wants order. Saruman wants control. But the Nameless Things appear utterly indifferent. No ambition. No ideology. No conquest. Just existence. And indifference is often more terrifying than hatred. A tyrant can be resisted. A monster can be fought. But how do you confront something that barely recognizes your existence at all? Like standing before an earthquake and trying to negotiate morality. This is where Tolkien becomes almost cosmic in his horror. Most fantasy worlds reassure us that darkness can eventually be understood. Named. Mapped. Defeated. But Tolkien quietly suggests something far more unsettling. That existence itself contains blind spots. Ancient depths beyond language and comprehension. And Gandalf, an immortal Maya older than the sun and moon, returns from those depths shaken into silence. Think about who Gandalf really was. Not merely a wizard. He existed before the shaping of the world. He witnessed the music of creation itself. Yet even he refuses to elaborate on what he saw below Moria. That silence matters. Because Tolkien understood a terrifying psychological truth. The human mind fears incomplete knowledge more than visible monsters. A dragon can be imagined. A demon can be described. But the unknown expands infinitely inside the imagination. And Tolkien weaponized that beautifully. This is where things become philosophically disturbing. Because the Nameless Things reveal limits even Morgoth could not cross. Most people assume Morgoth represented the deepest darkness in Tolkien's universe. The first Dark Lord. The corrupter of creation. The being who scarred the substance of Arda itself. But Gandalf explicitly says the Nameless Things are older than Sauron. Possibly older than Morgoth's dominion over Middle-earth entirely. And suddenly the hierarchy of evil begins to fracture. Because Morgoth's power relied on corruption. He could not truly create life. Only distort existing things into twisted reflections. Orcs from elves. Trolls from ents. Dragons from corrupted beasts. But the Nameless Things do not seem corrupted. They seem separate. As though they emerged from somewhere outside the wars of gods altogether. That idea is deeply unsettling. Because it suggests Morgoth was never the ultimate darkness. Only the greatest darkness humanity could understand. There may have been older realities beneath him all along. This is where the Balrog becomes symbolically important. During the battle beneath Moria, the Balrog flees downward through those ancient tunnels. Think about how terrifying that image truly is. A demon forged in the wars before the first sunrise. A creature powerful enough to destroy kingdoms. Running blindly into deeper darkness. Like a predator fleeing through an ocean trench while something larger moves beneath the water. And Gandalf follows it. Down through endless caverns untouched by sunlight. Past forgotten abysses where direction itself loses meaning. Into places so ancient language no longer functions properly. The world above still thinks they are fighting beneath a mountain. But that's not what really happened. They were descending beneath the architecture of reality itself. This is where Tolkien's horror becomes almost existential. Because the Nameless Things suggest Middle-earth is not fully governed. Not even by divine beings. There are regions untouched by order. Untouched by light. Untouched perhaps even by purpose. And that possibility terrifies us instinctively. Humans crave systems. We want the universe to feel understandable. Structured. Safe. But Tolkien quietly implies there are always depths beneath the map. Mysteries older than civilization itself. And perhaps older than morality. Most people never realize the true horror beneath Moria is not the creatures. It is the implication. The realization that existence contains realities even the wise cannot explain. And Gandalf survives carrying that knowledge back to the surface. Imagine the loneliness of that. To witness something that fundamentally alters your understanding of the world. Yet no language itself cannot fully communicate it. That may be why Tolkien leaves the Nameless Things undescribed. Because explanation reduces fear. Mystery magnifies it. The less we see, the larger the darkness becomes psychologically. And honestly, that may be Tolkien's greatest skill as a writer. He understood that the unseen often terrifies us more than the visible. Not because it is necessarily stronger, but because it reveals the limits of our understanding. This is where things become strangely tragic. The dwarves believed Khazad-dûm belonged to them. A kingdom carved through mastery, labor, and pride. But beneath their greatest achievement, ancient things already existed. Waiting. Unnoticed. Like humanity building castles atop sleeping fault lines. That symbolism matters. Because Tolkien repeatedly warns against confusing control with ownership. The deeper beings in Middle-earth seek domination. The more fragile they ultimately become. Morgoth tried to control creation itself. Sauron tried to dominate all wills. The dwarves tried to master the roots of the mountains. And beneath all of them, something older remained untouched. That may be the real meaning of the Nameless Things. Not monsters. Limits. The reminder that existence itself cannot ever be fully conquered. Not by kings. Not by dark lords. Not even by wisdom. There will always be deeper mysteries waiting beneath the foundations of certainty. And maybe that is why Gandalf never truly described what he saw. Because some truths do not make the world clearer. They make it stranger. Vaster. More frightening. In the end, the Balrog was only the guardian standing at the threshold. The real horror beneath Khazad-dûm was the realization that Middle-earth contained ancient darknesses no one had ever named. And perhaps never could. But if the Nameless Things were buried beneath the roots of the mountains, then the next mystery becomes even more disturbing. Because Tolkien also hinted there was one creature in Middle-earth the ring itself could not fully understand. Tom Bombadil. And the terrifying possibility that he existed outside the laws governing power entirely.